Welcome to the Billable Mom podcast, led by attorney Cari Rincker, where we discuss working motherhood, but especially geared to professional mothers who are trying to juggle their time. Our time is precious, both at work and at home. We talk time management and productivity hacks, the struggles of being a working parent, and provide a community where other billable moms are also trying to calm the chaos 6 minutes at a time. Listen to stories of other working moms, but especially lawyer moms, navigate the waters balancing career and the ever-present demands of motherhood.
Hi, I'm Cari Rincker. I'm the Billable Mom, and we have Angel Wawrzynek in the house. I'm very excited to have this conversation, Angel.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Well, Angel, I was thinking about it this morning, and I think that we met several years ago as adversaries on a case. You are my opposing counsel, and that was, I think, pre-children for both of us. Is that right?
Yes to both. I think that is right.
So, Angel, could you just take a moment and introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell them about you and your law practice.
Yes. So actually, I don't hardly litigate at all anymore. So that dates our our introduction by many years. But so I'm Angel Wawrzynek. I am a partner here at Constant Wawrzynek Grove. We're a law firm in Central Illinois that does estate planning and trusted estate administration. So I pivoted into that several years ago and have loved it, and it's definitely been a good fit for me. So that's all that I do. I don't hardly argue with people so much anymore, at least not professionally.
And you have a few littles, so why don't we just jump right into, work-life balance? Like, how do you find that, or are you still searching for that?
I think we're all still searching for that, right? I mean, if any of us had the perfect answer, we wouldn't have a podcast or like a million other resources that are designed to help us all figure out what we're doing. I have two littles. You're right. I got a 5-year-old and a just shy of 1-year-old. Later this month, 1-year-old. I will say that having made a career shift that helps me define my day in a more finite manner. The estate planning is a lot easier for me to say, I'm done at X hour and I'm out. Whereas litigation, when you're doing trial prep and those kinds of things, I mean, you just have to go, and it doesn't matter. So that has helped. But I think the best advice I received was something that stuck with me anyways, was when I was still in law school, there was a panel of women attorneys that I went to talk to, listen to, and it was an hour long. But the one thing that stuck with me, this 15 years later, is balancing it so that everyone is a little unhappy. Like, that's the perfect balance. If you feel like you're doing everyone a little bit of a disservice, then you're probably balanced right. You don't want to be all the way one way or all the way the other.
That's actually great advice. So talk to us a little bit about your day. So you are an owner in your own law practice. So you have that during the day. So maybe walk us through, like, what's a typical business day for you?
So typical business day. I mean, it helps that I'm one of the owners. I don't have anyone that I have to report to, sort of, except myself. I mean, I've got partners, but they don't need to worry about where I am at any point in time. So that helps. That helps a lot, which is a luxury that not everyone has. I am normally, and I don't know how much you want to get into the detail of like the morning routine at home in terms of getting the boys ready, but fortunately, my husband is very active in that process. So normally we tag team, and one of us is getting one of them ready and the other one's getting the other one ready. And then, like, between all of us, we're all mostly, presentable by the time we need to be presentable. I'm leaving with the youngest one around 8 to bring him to daycare. I drop him off and I get here between 8:15 and 8:30. That's my normal routine anymore. And then, because I am a little bit of a sucker and my older son, who's 5, gets impatient, I got in the habit of leaving here at 4:45. So I pick him up around 5 instead of me leaving here at 5, which would be a more normal thing to do. I may have to make that change at some point, but Yeah, those kids, they have an internal clock and they know if you're like 5 minutes later than usual, it's a like they know they're on to
Yeah.
you.
I mean, I don't know what your childcare situation was like as a child, but I remember I have memories of a child. I was babysat by my grandparents, and I remember like when my parents were late and how like frustrated I was. Like, where are they? So kids can tell, which puts all the more pressure on us as working parents. So during the day, what are you doing in terms of efficiencies?
Uh, the biggest thing I try to do is I try my darndest to not bounce back and forth between work and home things. Like some days that's not possible. Some days there's just a million things you have to do that require brain space during business hours that are mom things instead of work things. But it is a lot easier to maintain momentum and get things done if you're like in a groove. And so if happenstance, it's one of the days where I need to call and like do other things, I actually lean in and I spend like 2 hours just doing stuff that I need to do, get my old change scheduled, make sure I have the doctor's appointments on the books, like whatever I need to be doing that's those things, just get them all done so I can cross it off the worry list and then I can focus because the best thing is if you can maintain focus. I don't know if you found that to be true too.
Yes, that's, I think, such a challenging thing because at a certain point, your brain can only handle so much, right? And I bullet journal and try to get things written down as much as I can, but it can sometimes be a lot. So that's good advice in terms of kind of like block scheduling mom time, like even just during the day. So what are you doing for childcare? I mean, you take your kids to daycare?
Yeah, so they go to daycare. My older son is 5 and he's in preschool for a few hours every day. They call it a half day, but let's be honest, like it's a half school day, which is not a full day to begin with. So, in any event, so he goes there in the morning and then over to the facility. It's a daycare facility as compared to like an in-home daycare, which we have been really happy with. And I don't know, I don't know if I'm supposed to plug the daycare itself or if I'm just supposed to be generic, but it has been that, yeah, they've been great.
No, and it's totally fine to say which one it is for those that are local listeners. So, can you tell me, have you always used like a daycare facility, or did you ever have any other, childcare resources?
So, my husband and I, neither of us are from this area. I mean, we are now. Like at some point, I feel like if I've lived here for 15 years, I should be able to say that I'm from Mattoon. But we did not grow up here. And so we don't have other, like, there's not a family option or other kinds of resources we might have relied on. So no, since the beginning, when I went back to work after my older son was born, it's been a daycare facility. We did start at one daycare facility that we weren't incredibly happy with. And that's, he just turned 5. So that's 5 years ago. So I'm definitely not going to name them because who knows where they're doing. And we weren't happy with them. That doesn't mean they're not in their own right doing their own thing well. But we are now at CC's Imagination Station Preschool and Daycare, I think is the name, which is just CC's for short, here in Mattoon. And they are fantastic. We've been really happy with them. They've been great to both of our kids. They've been great for us. And so that has been a huge, like that makes it easier for me to get through the day, that I'm confident that my kids are in good hands. That's what you really need.
Yeah, so I'm curious because I put Jason daycare and he was sick for 3 weeks straight with, this, that, and the other, and not in Mattoon, but in a daycare in Champaign because I was his first go at it. And I don't know, Angel, how are your kids? How did they adjust to daycare? And did you have to miss a lot of work, when they were going through any kind of sickness there?
So yeah, my older son was sick a lot. And that being said, I don't know that it's true, but the sort of going mantra is, do it now or do it when they get to kindergarten. One way or another, they're going to get exposed to all these kids and all these germs and their system's going to have to figure it all out. And so, I don't know that there's a better time to do it, one or the other, whatever makes sense for your family. But I don't think by keeping them home, that all of a sudden they'll never deal with it. I think it's just, when you deal with it. My younger son was pretty healthy for the first, 8 months of his life, and then was sick all this fall, which was a whole thing. I have missed a bunch of work in both contexts, both right after with my first son, and then now, because I'm a partner at a smaller firm, I've had other people who could help cover for me. And so that helps. I know that distinguishes me from you, where you've been the principal, or maybe not a solo, but you have an associate or something. I mean, I've had people that I can sort of count on who are either partners or superiors. When my oldest son was born, I was an associate, so that helps.
So how do you think clients have reacted to, and we'll get into maternity leave here in just a second, but time you being unavailable because of childcare issues or sicknesses, maternity leave, etc.?
Well, I don't know exactly. It hasn't been a huge problem. I'm normally really upfront about it. So when we've had to reschedule clients because a kid is sick, I tell my staff to tell the client, we have to reschedule because Angel's kid is out sick. And I don't know if that's the right, and that meshes with my personality, which is just super direct anyways. So like that works for me. And then people for the most part get it. And even my working theory or just sort of outlook is, even if they don't like it and they don't think it's a good answer and they're unhappy with it, it's sort of socially difficult for them to say that, right? Yeah. I mean, it would be very difficult for someone on the other end of the line to be like, I don't want an attorney who takes care of her kids. Like, what are they going to say?
I know. It's true. But I mean, I'm sure it's also just the people pleaser in me. I sometimes find it to be challenging for me to tell clients, I'm sorry, and we have to vacate this court date or move this court date because of my child being sick or whatever. But sometimes it just is what it is, and they're going to be disappointed. And
yes, and I also tend to be a people pleaser, and so that does also cause me a little bit of anxiety every once in a while when I let myself think about it like that. I just try to not, because what am I going to do, really? Right. I mean, I'm never taking the time that I've made the decision, I'm taking the time off, and whether I made the decision because I'm mom and I have to, and they're sick and that is it, that's fine. But there are days where I took a day off and took my son to the zoo in the fall. That's awesome. And I didn't necessarily tell clients specifically what I was doing because they might have been a little bit more disgruntled if they knew I was doing something fun. But it is, I didn't do it in a way like I planned it. So I didn't have to move a hearing at the last moment the way you do when it's a sickness or something. But
so let's shift gears and talk about maternity leave, because I am actually a little jealous, because I feel like you were a lot more disciplined about having a real maternity leave as opposed to me. So tell us about your maternity leaves and your game plan there.
So the first time around, I was an associate attorney, so I had to work out what the plan was going to be with my boss, who was fortunately really accommodating. And as part of that, I actually spoke to a bunch of different people at a bunch of different law firms about what their respective maternity, paternity leave policies were, because I didn't really know even what to suggest or ask for. And as the first attorney who would need that leave, I was a female attorney. There was another female attorney who joined after me, but she already had kids, so she didn't ever need the maternity. So it was just, I was trailblazing, and we were trying to figure out what's fair, what makes sense. And so we decided that I would take off somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks. And we'd kind of see how it went, basically. Assuming that I was doing okay and depending on client need. So I did not I think I was back in the office around 10 weeks, at least, maybe a little sooner for part-time. And then I was, back into full-time a little after 10 weeks off. Which was, and I fielded a few things while I was gone, here and there, but not too much. I mean, they were very, very good to me.
So in hindsight, do you wish you would have taken more time, or was that kind of the perfect time and you were anxious to get back into the office?
No, in hindsight, I do think I could have pushed to take a little more time off. I let the demands of the office, and I don't mean to say that my boss was saying like, you get back here. Like, no, he was great and supportive. I have always been my own worst enemy in terms of inferring things that maybe weren't even put upon me. I just accept or decide for myself that I have these obligations. I need to get back there. Like, I need to make my number. I need to, because you're part of a team, and other people covered my cases when the clients needed things and whatever. So this time around, when my now almost 1-year-old was born a year ago, I took off. I don't actually know exactly what I took off. I'm going to say it was 14 weeks or so. I mean, it was about 3.5 months.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I was just gone. And he was born in February, which is when his due date was. And starting in, I don't know, November, if you wanted on my calendar, you were set in June. Like, that was that we just told everybody, maybe she'll be back sooner, but maybe not. And we don't want to count on it and have to reschedule you. So you get June, or you can meet with somebody else. But if you want Angel, you're waiting until June. And so I didn't have anything on my calendar until after Memorial Day. So I came back, kind of got organized, triaged some email. It was a very easy transition back.
Yeah. I don't want to know how many emails. If you weren't checking your email at all, I don't even want to know how many you came back.
It was hilarious. Now, I did, a couple things that made that possible and manageable. One, I created a Word document that was like, these are the emails I delete every day. And then my staff went in and deleted them every day. Like, there's junk mail that we all get or whatever. Here's a bunch of stuff, just delete it. I will not need to see it. I love the ISBA, the Illinois State Bar Association. I could not love it more. I don't need to go back through and read the Eclipse daily announcement every day for my entire maternity leave. Like, just delete it. Right. I don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, there was a list of things that I just knew I was not going to need. So that was that. And then if it was client emails, for the most part, I had set up an out of office reply, but for the most part, also my staff followed up with people. Like, they were checking my email kind of for me to make sure that if it was something who said like, hey, can you help me on this document, or what's the status of this? So there was there was still a lot of email, and there was mostly, though, it was things just to get caught up on. Like, it wasn't people who were waiting on me. It was more just me getting back up to speed. Like, what did happen in all these things in the past, 3 months? So having someone else triage my email helped. The other thing is, my very good friend, Billy Constant, joined here as a partner in January of 2023, which means I took my entire client list and I went, here you go. Bye. I brought her up to speed, but instead of, like, the first time around, I had to allocate and delegate everything that was on my list amongst a whole group of people who were already full time. Like, they had a full caseload. And so everyone was triaging and covering, but like, you can only do so much. There's only so many hours in the day. This time around, I was super lucky. The timing worked out. Billy was joining, and I could just say, here's a full-time job. Please enjoy. And then I came back, and while I took a couple of the files back, for the most part, I just started fresh, new meetings in June, and away we go, which was actually really nice.
That's awesome. Everybody needs a Billy Constant. But so, Angel, if you could roll back the clock and do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently, or you're like, hey, this worked?
For the second time around, I really do think that taking off the 3.5 months, that felt Right. Like, I mean, at some point you have to go back to work if you're going to go. Not everyone has, right? You could be a stay-at-home mom and that's great for you and kudos. I am not stay-at-home mom material. Like there is a point at which I'm like, there is someone better qualified to this. So I'm going to do what I'm good at and you do what you're good at and we'll all get through the day. So that felt good. Like it felt like the right time to start bringing him to daycare and he did well. So yeah, I'm feeling okay about that.
That's great. So I want to jump topics here and talk a little bit about screen time, which is a struggle for me right now because my son, and I'm the one that let the genie out of the bottle. Like I can't put the genie back in the bottle now. He loves watching TV. He loves watching like on my phone, on the iPad, especially when we're traveling. And so, how has screen time been for you?
Well, it's its own struggle, right? I mean, especially because there's so much just negativity about don't let your kids have any screen time. How dare you? And so, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so there's a lot of unnecessary stress around this question.
Yes.
I think it's like everything else that we do. A little bit is fine. You know what I mean? Like everything in moderation. So my older son, who's 5, he turned 1, and then like 3 months later, COVID hit and everything went in lockdown and daycares were closed. And like, that was its own whole like mess, which I realize is not the topic of this thing. So we don't need to talk about how much time I took off for COVID, but, the only way we could get through that, me and my husband being the we in that sentence, was by letting our son have some screen time. I mean, if my husband and I both needed to be in a meeting, what are we? Yeah, I mean, like we got to do something that is guaranteed to keep him, engaged. And so he ended up getting screen time. Like we had done a very strict no screen time. We're not going to be those people. We're gonna, whatever, follow the internet's recommendations, I guess, because in hindsight, I don't really know that it was a doctor, but. And so he really didn't have any screens for the first year. And then it was like, all right, all in, here we go. And then we've tried to moderate and find a good balance ever since. So, I mean, now you said that your son really likes the screen time. Does he have favorite shows?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He's obsessed with Blippi and Jack and the Beanstalk on YouTube right now. So we watch every single version of it, over and over again. And so it's been a struggle for me to try to keep that in balance because I'm not going to lie. Like I was one of those judgmental parents before I had kids, like looking at parents in restaurants, like, what are you doing? Like, why, your kids should be in front of a screen all the time. Like, oh my goodness, you have a TV in your van. Like, what are you doing? And, Angel, I have now a TV in my van. I haven't figured out how to work it yet, but like, I am super excited. And now if I can get it to work for a long road trip, so I think the lesson for me is that like we're all trying to do the best we can with all this and like to not to judge another parent for how they have figured out how to have a few moments of peace to enjoy their dinner or, get the dishes done, while their child is watching television. I mean, of course there's some benefits to screen time too, but yeah, it's a challenge for me to try to keep it in moderation. I did take a parenting class and I will have that parenting coach on this podcast, but she talked a lot about timers, like using timers, like a 15-minute timer, 5 minutes. So I'm still trying to figure it all out, but I am playing with timers right now.
Timers have helped us. I mean, so a couple things that have helped me navigate it. One is I sat down and really thought about what am I worried about? Mm-hmm. Like, why do I care? Forget the internet and all the mirrors. Like, why do I actually care for like a reason? For the first year, there seemed to be, and I'm not like, this is not my credentials, but my understanding is it's bad for their like brain eye development for the first year to really have basically any screen time. So to the minimum, like to the extent you can minimize or avoid it that first year, that's like, that matters is my understanding. So then from there on, I realize it does have some effects, but like that point, it's a little different. So some screen time is fine. And really the concern that resonates with me is you want to make sure that your kids are still able to interact with society in person. Like you don't want their only ability to be with a screen. So as long as you're also developing their social skills and their ability to say like, hi, my name is such and such, and like those kinds of, and just to be a person, then that's, you've checked that box. The other concern that people have is with and this is the one that I have to work on, the instant gratification issue. It's the same reason that it's bad for all of us to be doom scrolling on like the Facebooks and the TikToks of the world. I'm not saying I don't do it, by the way, I love it, but it's bad for our, and like you post something and then it's really hard to fight the compulsion to be like, how many likes do I have? It's like 5 minutes later. Oh my God, did somebody like it? Like, don't do that. Like it sends you this like weird, like rush of, dopamine or whatever it is. And so you want it, but it's like, no, it's actually really bad. Don't do that. And it's bad for the kids. Like that shouldn't be how they develop the good feeling either. It shouldn't be dependent on that. So, however, I love movies. I love TV. I mean, I've watched a ton of movies and TVs in my adult life because it's one of the things I enjoy doing. And I haven't done so much now that I have kids, but it would be very disingenuous for me to say like, oh, no movies or TV because that's like not my belief system, when I've seen basically, every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at least once. Like, I mean, what am I doing? And so one of the things we've done is we limit the amount of time that he has on something where he gets to touch the screen and and it plays whatever he wants to play. But we might sit down and watch a whole movie. So even though his screen time with the instant gratification thing is done for the day, we might still after dinner, a night or two a week, watch a full length like Disney movie. Because that doesn't have that issue and I'm not worried he's more than one. So, I mean, like I don't know. That's helped me.
Yeah. My son's obsessed with Pinocchio right now. So it's a blast from the past. So,
and it loved Pinocchio for a while too, although he said Pinocchio, which always cracked us up. Like, anyway, so Pinocchio was a big deal in our house a couple years ago. So I don't know why. Yeah. A bunch of the older movies have been hits, which I've loved because it's been very, I will say, you mentioned timers and I got sidetracked thinking about other things, but while we do set a time for how long he's going to watch it, I mean, kids only have a sense of time within, some range. What we always do is we give them a 2-minute warning whenever it's about to switch. Because the transition problem was the biggest problem. And that's where I think everyone gets really frustrated because you're like, it's time to stop it. And the kid is like, nah, and they throw this huge fit. And then you're like, well, now you can't have screen time because you're being unreasonable. But it's like, if someone just walked in and turned off my TV, like when I was in the middle of something, like I'd be a little irritated too. Now, I would like to think I'd handle it better than a toddler, but so being like, hey, dinner's in 2 minutes. This is your 2-minute warning. And for a while, we literally used a timer and would set a 2-minute timer, and then it would go like it beep. I'm just gonna emulate it. You don't need to hear it. You know what a beep is. It just like would go off, and then he'd know, okay, that was the time, and then we toddle into dinner. Now we did that for like a while, and now even if I can't get my hands on the timer or if we're traveling or whatever, I can just say 2-minute warning, and then at the end, I say, beep, 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 time's up.
And you're the timer.
That's why I like have this innate sense that I need to be the timer, is that I often I am the timer. I'm the announcement. I'm a great clock. But yeah, the transition timer has helped more than anything. Like I don't know that if I'd set it for 20 minutes that would be helpful, because that's too long for him to have a comprehension, I think. Maybe now he would, but certainly not at first.
Yeah, that's great advice. Hey, Angel, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsor. We're going to come back and talk about breastfeeding while working.
Okay.
This episode of the Billable Mom podcast is brought to you by Rincker Law PLLC, focusing in food, farm, and family. When I'm not a mother juggling 2 littles at home, I am the principal attorney of this nationally recognized law practice, where we believe that strong communities have both strong families and a food, fiber, and agriculture system. At Rincker Law, not only do we do family and matrimonial law, but we work with entrepreneurs and agriculture producers on business, estate, and succession planning. We are a client-focused, results-driven law practice at Rincker Law. We also support other billable moms, not only in the workplace, but also with clients, helping them live their dreams both in business and at home. For more information, visit us at www.rinkerlaw.com. Cari Rincker, food, farm, and family. All right, Angel. So I know that every woman has a very different, story with their, and perspective with breastfeeding and lactation. But if you feel comfortable, do so. Would you maybe talk about your journey?
Yeah. So I found it interesting in reading like all the baby books when I was pregnant for the first time, that it turns out, as far as I can tell, at least that's the information given to me, that the decision as to whether you want to breastfeed tends to be statistically more tied to whether or not your mom breastfed you than to any other socioeconomic or societal difference between us, which I just find to be this, like, I don't know, fascinating, because it's not tied to anything else, which I just, how many things aren't, which is fascinating. So anyways, happenstance, yes. So my mom breastfed me and my brothers. And so in my world, that was just what you did. Like, I don't even have a memory. I mean, I certainly don't have a memory from being an infant, but I don't have a memory from my younger brothers nursing either, at least not consciously. So it's just fascinating to me that as an adult, all these years later, it was just like, obviously I'm going to try. I'm like, why? Isn't that what you do? I mean, so I can't say that I gave it a whole lot of thought, other than that I asked my husband if he had any opinions, and he was like, I don't think I'm supposed to have an opinion.
He's a smart man.
I support you. When I was like, that wasn't a trick question. I wanted your thoughts, but also thank you. So that being said, interestingly, there's several members of the extended family that were pregnant right at the same time as me, by just sheer happenstance. And so that was not everyone's like outlook, right? So I've got sisters-in-law who it was not their plan at all. And so it's just interesting to watch the journey. But yeah, I mean, I was going to try to do that. Because I didn't know any working moms who were nursing, my thought was, I'm going to try to get through my maternity leave nursing, and then I will stop. That was just sort of my initial goal. And then I thought, well, maybe I could do it a little bit longer. And so I got a pump and was pumping. And then I thought, hey, maybe I could just keep this going. And so I tried to make sure I didn't set myself a goal of like, I'm going to nurse for a year. That's so daunting. Even though I did actually nurse my older son for more than a year, like if I had set out and said, this is the minimum that will make me feel good about myself as a mom, I feel like I would have failed immediately. So devastating. So just just seeing how it goes. Like
I think that's great advice, because I mean, I think every woman is different. Every baby is different. And, and I think that women tend to put so much pressure on themselves around this topic. Like, they feel less than if they're not able to breastfeed exclusively or at all, or whatever the case might be. And I just think that, we have to be kinder to ourselves. And I love that. Like, we're just going to go with it and just see what happens and do the best we can. So talk to me about how, whenever you were at your prior firm, you came back and you were doing litigation, you came back. Were you in and out of court while you were lactating, or were you mostly in the office?
Both. I have sat on a bathroom floor to pump all over South Central Illinois. I have been, it was a journey the first time around, because I was still doing some litigation at that point. I had started my journey into, getting all my CLE and doing estate planning, but it was only a small portion of my practice at first, and I was still litigating. And so, Champaign County, their courthouse has a lactation room, and I was the first person to actually use it. They had it had been in existence for a year, maybe a year and a half at the time. And I had seen the press about it, and I was like, oh, good, they've got this lactation room. So I went to the bailiffs and I was like, hey, can I have the key for the lactation room? And the guy was like, really? He was so excited. Because they had to move things out of there and make this room, and no one's using it, right? So, and at the time, it was very dreary and sad. And so they've since revamped it, I understand. But in any case, but he was like, hey, guess what? Dave, she needs the key to the lactation room. They were very excited. It was very funny. But other places didn't have one. I don't know. I haven't really kept tabs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, bathroom floors. And I had to make.
Well, I can only speak to Illinois on this topic. I don't know what the laws are in other states, but I think that state courthouses in Illinois have to now have a lactation room there. So I don't know what the qualifications are, because like you, I experienced a wide array. Champaign actually had one of the nicer ones. I've also used Vermilion County and Douglas County as well in Illinois. So not as bright and welcoming. But I think that you don't realize the lack of access to lactation rooms until you are in you need to use one, and there's just a restroom that's available, and it's, I don't know, Angel, what do you think about this topic? It's very difficult, I think, as a working mother to find a nice, hygienic place to lactate sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because as I agree with everything you just said, and yes, the laws that required the implementation of those lactation rooms had been, I think they rolled out a year before my son was born. I think that was the timing, because I remember, so my husband's in HR, and I hadn't noticed that law, but he was like, they're required to have those rooms, which is the only reason I knew Champaign County had one, which is why I remember that story. But not everywhere had managed to get that, because your older son is 4 or 3?
He's almost 3.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I was like, you were just a couple years behind. I think there was enough time for everyone to get the rooms together, but not everyone had yet done that really when I was traipsing around the world, lactating for and pumping for my first son. But something that you don't know until you're trying to do it, because not only did I not know, I never thought about it, is it's not just literally the mechanics of you're in a room, do it. You your mental state matters. And so if you feel oh my God, I can't touch anything here, that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. And then it's just a waste of time. And so the room, the vibe of the room actually does matter. So which is just kind of crazy, because normally I'm a very pragmatic and, I don't know, whatever, practical person, but that's no, you really do need it to be lovey-dovey. And
I've had issues not only in other public places, but also in law offices. Perhaps there's windows everywhere around the conference room, so you can't just shut a door and have privacy. And I one time had this wonderful attorney who came to me in a law office, was like, hey, I think, but I don't know, that you're pumping in the bathroom. You're more than welcome to come use our private conference room. And it's a little embarrassing, but at the same time, I really appreciated it. I mean, I feel like office share situations, we need to have there be more accessibility for lactation rooms just across the board, to not make it so hard for working mothers to continue to feed and provide nutrition for their baby.
Yes, the windows problem is definitely a problem, especially because normally having windows and lots of light is a perk, right? I mean, I have these great windows in my office that are behind you. They're behind my screen rather, so you can't see them, but I love that normally, right? Not great for when you're trying to pump. So I've used storage closets basically when I was part of I was on a member of a board of a nonprofit, and they didn't have a lactation room, of course. And so I say, of course, maybe they're required now. I don't know. It's been 5 years, but So they were really nice about it, but they're like, all we have, like, everything has a window. So here's our storage closet. And I mean, it was fine, but it's just, yeah, it's not ideal. Although I don't know, I think, yes, everyone needs to be accommodating, but also we just need to normalize the fact that,
Yes.
like, people might need to ask, like,
Absolutely, absolutely. And in addition to just the logistical problem of everything, I think that there's also like a time problem. I know I mentioned this to you prior to this call, but I really struggled coming back from my small maternity leave with my office just overscheduling me and not thinking about the fact that I need to have a 20-minute break at some point in time. And, how did you sort of address that issue just from a time standpoint?
I'm just apparently meaner than you, I think, is the answer to that. Yeah, we periodically have staff meetings where we talk about how we're going to handle the scheduling and how far out we're booking people and what the plan is going to be, so that we can all try to keep up and not do a disservice to our current clients. Because if I'm booked solid in a day, forgetting the pumping issue, I can't do any of the things for the other people that I met with yesterday because I'm booked solid. And you do that too many days in a row, and now I'm not helping anybody. I'm representing no one. And so even though it feels so terrible to have to tell someone, I can't meet with you for however many weeks, I've had to be better about it. And my staff, fortunately, they're better at it than I am. They're a little more ruthless, and that's good. That's what I need them to be about. Well, this is when you can meet with her. And as part of those discussions, we were building time into the day for me to have time to do things. And I ended up, so I was just able to kind of fit my pumping into the day in those time slots. Now, that being said, while everyone seems to think that I should be able to bill hours while I'm pumping, and I can normally do a little something here or there, I really don't have the focus. Like, it's not the same as just working. So it's not quite as productive of a day as it would be if I were not, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, talk to me about, I know that we mentioned before about work efficiency hacks, but do you do any block scheduling, or tell me a little bit about how you architect your day?
No, I've heard a lot about that. Like, if you set aside time, so I only return phone calls between, 10 and 11 or any of those that sounds spiffy. But what we have kind of a rubric, I guess. So, like, this is the default, is that I meet with people. First of all, the goal is I meet with only one person in the morning and only one person in the afternoon. And by one person, I mean one client. And sometimes a client is a whole family. I don't mean that, but I have one meeting in the morning and one meeting in the afternoon is the goal. And that way, the rest of the morning and the rest of the afternoon, I'm actually doing things that need done. That doesn't really happen, because we then squeeze in other clients. If it's a signing, like, because I do estate planning, so a lot of signings, we try to squeeze those in, and that'll be my second meeting of the morning or second meeting of the afternoon. My logic being, I'm not generating any new work at that meeting, so and I don't want people to have to wait a super long time to sign the work we want to finish projects.
Right.
And also, because we do estate administration, it is very common that the family will say, we've lost this loved one. Everyone's in town on Friday. Can we please come meet with you? And so that gives me the ability to do that. So in general, I still end up with sometimes up to 4 meetings a day on a good day. And sometimes we do book me more solid than that. But so we have the starting point, we've got the reality, and then we've got the time slots, which in general are 9, 10:30, 1:30, and 3. I'm not saying that all my meetings are always exactly those time slots, but that is the goal. And since having a starting point that we have the authority to deviate from has worked very well for me, as compared to a very regimented, well, my hands are tied. I don't know that I would do well with that. Do you do block scheduling?
So I have tried it and I have failed. I have a new mission for 2024 to try to figure this out. I do have now morning block schedule for some focused time. I have a block for marketing time. And in the afternoons on Tuesdays through Thursdays, I have time for phone calls. Mondays are supposed to be my manager day where I'm just meeting with team and trying to think about tasks and priorities and things. With Fridays being open, I've kind of also tagged it my money days. Maybe I'll do bills or think about accounts receivable and things along those lines. So that is the goal. I have yet to have a perfect week, but I guess we all have something to strive for there.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I'm just going to jump back to something you said earlier, because you were talking about how you used to judge moms, like before you were a mom, you judge parents. And I know that I did too. I think that is the most important takeaway, is that we all just need to give each other a break, and just, it is what it is. We're all trying to get through the day. We're all doing our best. I mean, just if everyone just takes a breath and gives everyone some space and, is a little bit patient, we'll all get through this mess together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a lot about work, and I'm curious to kind of shift gears to home. And you're with your kids mostly on the weekend, each weekend, right? There's no childcare on the weekends, is that right?
Right. Sorry, I thought you were saying I only get to see my kids on weekends.
No.
Like I'm with them every night, but
you're not working at all, I think, on the weekends. Is that?
I've been trying to not, although as of late, I've been sort of pivoting back to maybe coming in a little bit on weekends after all, just because I'm incredibly backlogged. So but I try to not. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. No, well, I'm still working a little bit on the weekends, and it's very difficult for me to figure out how to get things done without that. I very, very much want a life where I can leave my office at 4 or 5 o'clock, and then not think about it until the next day. So, but I'm curious if you have any home organization hacks or anything like that you'd like to share.
No, I mean, so it seems like we're just constantly changing things. That's the only thing that's constant in our house, is so we have the toy bin set up one way, and then we decide, well, this is terrible, or not terrible, but not good enough. Out with those, in with this new shelving system, or in with reorganizing the toys. So I would alternate. Sometimes I'd have different bins. I did note that daycare would have a Monday bin or Tuesday bin or whatever. So you're not playing with all the toys.
That's actually a good idea. I should think about that.
And it helps because they, if there's too many options, they don't play with anything. It's overwhelming and they get bored. But if you only have a bucket of toys, then they dive in and actually play with the things. And so I went through, and I'm sure I'll do it a million more times, but I sometimes allocate all my bins by thing, right? So these are the dinosaurs, and these are the other animals, and these are the cars, and these are little figurines, and these are the whatever, right? And then other times I go, we're going to have mix match bins. So it's a bin of miscellaneous fun. So I make sure that every bin has a few animals and a few cars and a few right. But then when you're looking for a specific toy, right? Where's my whatever, you have to look in every single bin, which is terrible. So I don't know what the answer is. Right now, I have them allocated in their own bucket by type. And if you had done this interview 6 months from now, I bet I will be telling you about how I have it all mixed up. We'll see.
I love it. I love it. Hey, Angel, before we close, I'm curious, are there any resources that have been helpful to you as a working parent?
I mean, things like this, just hearing other moms tell their story. I will say I'm a kind of a sucker for the little videos online, either on Facebook or TikTok or whatever, of other moms just being very honest and open about the reality of just sort of, and hilarity of double standards and all those things. And just oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing kind of notions, so that you feel less alone and you're doing a better job if you realize that everyone's in the same boat, and it makes you laugh. Those things that make me laugh, that's been the most helpful, I think.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Hey, so Angel, can you tell our listeners where they can contact you?
Yes. So I'm in Mattoon. It's Constant Wawrzynek Grove. We are mattoonlawyers.com. And so that's that's probably the best way to find us.
I so appreciate your time and your transparency with all this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Glad to talk with you. Take care.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Billable Mom. At The Billable Mom, we don't pretend to have the answers, but instead have all the questions. Please find us on social media and join the conversation at The Billable Mom on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, Pinterest, and YouTube. We also have a Facebook group where like-minded billable moms find solidarity and provide a resource to one another. You can learn more about The Billable Mom and our picks for juggling work and motherhood at www.thebillablemom.com. You can also connect with Cari Rincker directly on social media at Cari Rincker. Until next time, let's calm the chaos 6 minutes at a time.